Holler if you hear me, and welcome to this week's edition of Luke's Shocks, where the headlines keep on coming, so I keep on coming up to knock 'em down. Now, a FedEx jet wound up bursting into flames right after takeoff at LaGuardia Airport because the crew was busy rage posting about Zelensky on Blue Sky. Now, a wildlife photographer was able to successfully capture photographic evidence of the very rare white orca killer whale, so expect Joy Reid to go online ranting about this whale's white privilege for 5 hours. 100 pounds of marijuana and $7,000 in cash were found in the trunk of a car over supposed illegal drug dealing going on in the city of Detroit. In response to this, Seth Rogen is planning on moving to the city of Detroit. The James Webb Telescope actually caught evidence and footage of what it looks like exactly when a star is born in the universe, proving that a star can be born without having to go to a hotel and get plowed by Harvey Weinstein. Evacuations in both South and North Carolina are being implemented by the government now that 175 different wildfires at Burr have now burst out, proving that California wildfires are just like Californian citizens and they'll migrate to southern states when the hell starts to freeze over. The passing of Gene Hackman is starting to become increasingly suspicious, with the presence of open pill bottles being found there at the house with him and his wife and even their little dog too, making me wonder at all three of them, what did they uncover about Hillary? The Oscars are happening tonight, and with the hiring of Conan O'Brien as the host, Jimmy Kimmel has the night off in anticipation of him sitting in the corner and being terrified while his name would have been almost this week released on the Epstein list. And Bill Burr was criticized heavily by Ben Shapiro this week for his support of Luigi Maggioni, the murderer of the United Healthcare CEO, Mr. Brian Thompson. But since Ben Shapiro made his name on destroying woke entitled losers with facts and logic, he's at the very least staying on brand. Unlike Bill Burr, the tell-it-like-it-is blue-collar, truth-teller comedian man who is now making his debut on Broadway, as well as demanding the death of Elon Musk and letting his woke attention whore of a wife act like an entitled fool who can't go anywhere without virtue signaling. But remember, this is Ben Shapiro, the kind of man to whom has been that way for a while. And yet, at least with Ben Shapiro, you can clearly see what kind of man he is and what it is he's doing in the world. While Bill Burr, on the other hand, is the wolf in sheep's clothing, who it turns out, well, the second you gave him a little bit of that money, you gave him a little bit of that attention, the guy who went quote-unquote viral for having suspiciously well-framed, well-photographed, well-recorded audio-wise screaming rants at women in traffic, or a podcast where he just incoherently rambles on about something he remembers in wrestling or something he saw in movies, which, because he's supposed to be a quote-unquote comedian, even though the biggest highlight of his stand-up comedy career was Dave Chappelle yelling at him in a fake beer commercial in a Chappelle Show skit, it turns out also, basically, so his idea of comedy, and when it came to him going viral on the internet, is no different from when, if you would say, watch the Cinema Snob do one of his midnight screenings videos from back in like the early 2010s. And also with just as much underhanded lefty political platitudes being served in there, and it still became politically and creatively expedient for him to just go full mask off like a little left-wing bald bitch. Considering that also Bill Burr looks like one of my testicles if they grew a beard, you probably would get the same effect by just listening to the audio recording of one of my testicles if I put a microphone up to it. Or when it comes to, hey, have you seen Bill Burr's do his stand-up? Well, you can get the exact same experience by going to any bar on a Saturday night in a poor, white, blue-collar kind of neighborhood and just listen to the nearest divorced guy sitting next to you rant his head off for the next 5 hours and somehow call him an accomplished talent. Really? Or is he just a milquetoast douchebag who now is jumping into a scene of whatever it is that's going to get his agent the right thing to do? I mean, I keep on bringing up about the likes of, say, Jennifer Lawrence and how she owes her career to the casting couch, of her being like all those other women in Hollywood obsessed with glass ceilings because glass ceilings are what they looked up at while Harvey Weinstein plowed them in exchange for stardom. Well, look at good old J-Law spending her, early teens on crap like the Bill Engvall show and being able to get in some forgettable indie drama after another, but then she does some indie drama that got on enough of the radar to get her some kind of Oscar credibility, and yeah, her showing herself as a great serious actress by showing up at that Oscars for her first nomination, looking like she stole the dress out of the wardrobe of Scarlett Johansson when good old ScarJo got groped by that dude live at the Oscars. But now, oh, no different from good old J-Law, going from edgy little indie films to the most manufactured, prefabricated, quirky indie comedy drama bullcrap after another, and getting handed an Oscar win and getting handed a YA franchise, and all of this while hoping you don't notice how she keeps on bringing up Harvey Weinstein or keeps getting happy little arm around him photos at red carpet premieres, or of course showing the true purpose of the GLAAD organization by going, because of good old J-Law and good old Harvey Weinstein going up there to do a little speech at a ceremony for gays and lesbians against defamation, because nothing says gays and lesbians against defamation like Hollywood's in vogue casting couch hooker of 2012 and her pimp. Or how you're supposed to go back to ScarJo, take a look at that and see the same actress who was giggling while getting groped by men on live TV and proposing to Michael Bay to show her tits in a film of his, is now, at this day and age, pretending to be offended by being so sexualized and all that, and hoping you don't notice how she's obviously unconsciously trying to disfigure herself for hating herself, for prostituting herself all those years by getting one big-ass ugly tattoo after another, when she damn well knows that she could have gone and kept on doing those boring indie movies that nobody remembers except for some intellectually pretentious video essayist YouTubers who kept on defending her despite the second she turned 18, she turned into a monotone sex doll all over Hollywood. But them having the attitude of the men who still will not get over not being popular in high school, when it came to her, will simper her no differently than basically Jonah Hill's character in Superbad over Emma Stone, where because I was friends with you and I remembered you when you were doing Ghost World, doing some other independent spirit nomination bait bullshit that no one else remembers, probably not even you. But since I was there before you turned 18 and started showing your ass to Sofia Coppola and smirking over your shoulder like Betty Grable at red carpet premieres while your ass and tits are out all the time, that means you'll remember me and respect me, and now you'll give me all the blowjobs and act out all my sex fantasies for you. Basically, the Hollywood starlet equivalent of how it shows you in Hollywood, if you sell your soul and do what it is they want, then, well, Bill Burr, being an incoherent little bitch who can go from being the edgy truth-teller, quote-unquote comedian, when really he was just another one of those guys who was a miserable, sexually frustrated little lout who jumped in on the bitching and moaning whenever any other comedian that disagreed with their politics or simply would not validate their politics even if they vote the same way as they do. Like, say, take a good long look at, well, any comedian, like, say, an Amy Schumer getting forced down your throat. Was a Billy Boy going out there and doing anything of that, of mentioning how she has the creative prowess of a chicken sandwich? No. The closest thing ever, I believe, was maybe back in the day a little bit, he would have given some limp-wristed support and defense of Dane Cook when he became hugely popular for about, a good 30-something months in the mid-2000s. And most of the backlash against him was not really founded mostly in anything to do with criticizing his act. It was to do with how pretentious little comedy nerds like Mark Maron or Patton Oswalt couldn't stand how the guy who looks like he got laid in high school became the huge selling album having Madison Square Garden selling out comedian. And well, remember what I said before with Bill Burr about how he's the kind of guy who basically just takes all of the bits of George Carlin and thinks he's the great next Carlin, when really no, he's all the worst aspects of Carlin now made anew and come to rot. Because remember when you take a copy of a copy, it's nowhere near as good as the original, and considering George Carlin was the original entitled, embittered, miserable Reddit atheist who thinks he knows everything but is really just a champagne socialist throwing rocks at conservatives and white people who don't hand him checks from behind his wrought iron gated community, calling all these rich white people racist and all that, even though Carlin lives in the same gated communities in Aspen alongside those rich white racists. And the guy who wants to talk about how conservatives are so wrong, it's so evil, and something they always want to censor me. But then at the same time, once he gets his name out there and anybody gets even slightly more successful than him, good old Georgie boy was going on Larry King Live and criticizing Andrew Dice Clay, saying, no, he's punching down. So the guy like Carlin and his inbred great-great-grandson Bill Burr are the kind of guys who built their whole brand on being edgy, being with it, being the guys who are gonna speak truth to power and all that, turn out to be dudes that will sell their soul to go and appear on Broadway, but if any comedian gets more successful than them, and then they'll find some intellectually pretentious and hypocritical reason to criticize them. Because, well, that's just the fake tolerant left all over. Good old Billy Boy going mask off right there and showing you, well, what matters not to him is really speaking truth to what it is he is. It's more like South Park, where South Park built themselves up as being edgy, all sides are all ridiculous to us. If you care about anything, you're stupid, or you vote this way, or you vote at all, man, you're just stupid because we're a bunch of rich assholes who don't have to worry about how the country's gonna go because we're already millionaires with corporations behind us, so you go and criticize any of that, we'll just mock you. Except when a president gets into the White House, that gets in the way of the mono-party monopoly and of what political elites connected to Hollywood elites want you to think or say. So then suddenly we'll go mask off and start reeing about good old the Donald, because all those years of pretending that we mock Republicans and Democrats turns out to have been all one big pose, and especially considering how these are the same people like Billy Boy or like South Park who basically acted like either Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did not exist, or took any criticism of them as a sign of you owning a pony white hood in your closet. Well, that just shows you're taking the skeletons in your closet and throwing them out there for everyone to see. Just like what Bill Burr is gonna do, and you really think that his kind of audience that actually, gave a shit about him were the kind of audience of blood-hungry, fake-tolerant leftists who will screech and bitch and moan about how dare little Kyle Rittenhouse be that evil, disgusting white supremacist that hunted black people, and will keep clinging to that lie even when it was proven in court he was a biracial underage boy defending himself from a woman beater and a child abuser in the middle of a riot scene. Well, these are the same people that will call that person evil and say he should have found a better way, while practically masturbating at the thought of some Italian dumbass sociopath murdering a healthcare CEO, okay? The hypocrisy is their personal philosophy, and that's not my opinion. I know I'm right. So I want to thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, hits 10,000 subs, become a member today, and shop at my art store at the second link below, where you can buy my art or commission me, or you can go and donate with that link right there below. So until then, felines, slam it, lick it, suck it, and see you, Space Cowboy.